Thank you for your introduction, Jonathan, and thank you to Four Paws International for organising such a timely event, which we are very proud to support. Sorry that I can't be there with you in person. However, one of our founding and very active steering group members, Susan Lillis, is there today. Colleagues, health and wildlife experts have warned us for decades of the public health risk associated with people mixing with wild animals, including through habitat destruction, illegal, unregulated or poorly regulated wildlife trade, markets and consumption. But let's never forget that when left alone, wild animals pose no risk to human health. The risk comes from how we, as people, interact with wildlife, and that's something we can manage. But do we? No, we don't adequately regulate these interactions. Our system is not orientated towards preventing the next pandemic. And that's why in June 2020, in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Global Initiative was created. Now, right from the outset, the initiative, which I chair, has set its sights firmly on prevention. And it has two objectives. Firstly, the creation of a new global agreement to tackle wildlife trafficking. And secondly, for international laws to take a One Health approach to wildlife trade and markets, which is of most relevance to today's discussion. Now, our initial preference was to amend existing international wildlife trade laws, and in particular, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, known as CITES, to include public and animal health criteria into its decision-making. It was, however, too big a step for CITES to broaden its scope after 50 years, and instead we've focused on a new pandemic instrument under the WHO, one that is rooted in a One Health approach and directly addresses prevention along with preparedness and response. To prevent the next pandemic, we need strong, globally agreed regulations on high-risk wildlife markets and the international trade in and consumption of any wildlife that could pose a risk to public or animal health. And this could include potential trade bans for specific high-risk species. Now, related to this, we also need to mitigate the impacts that such measures could have on those who lawfully exploit these species, and to scale up our efforts to prevent and combat the trafficking of high-risk wildlife. So why is this conversation relevant to the work of the WHO? Well, it's because this is not just a wildlife issue. This is a human issue. It's a public health issue. And we know that the way we interact with wild animals has the potential to affect the safety and well-being of billions of people. But dealing with wildlife issues is not familiar ground to the WHO, and we need to be active in making our case. And the WHO is not the only entity that has taken an interest in this issue. 4 international agencies have agreed to strengthen their cooperation, and several multilateral environmental agreements have expressed themselves on the issue. Now, in December 2022, the parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity adopted the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, with Target 5 referring to reducing the risk of pathogen spillover. Parties agreed that this framework should be implemented with consideration of the One Health approach and aim to sustainably balance and optimize the health of people, animals, plants, and ecosystems. And the parties also adopted a decision on biodiversity and health, which encourages parties to further integrate the One Health approach into their national biodiversity strategy and action plans. And we also saw some developments during the Conference of the Parties to CITES in November of last year. While CITES has no clear mandate on these issues, parties adopted decisions through which they encourage CITES authorities to contribute to efforts to identify and reduce the risk of transmission and spillover of zoonotic diseases and pathogen emergence from traded wildlife. Now, any progress made towards adopting a One Health approach to wildlife trade, markets and consumption is welcome. However, while valuable, enhanced interagency cooperation and non-binding decisions such as these are inadequate for addressing the scale and nature of the risk we face, and they leave us highly exposed to future zoonotic diseases. To give humanity its best shot at preventing the next outbreak, we need a strong, legally binding pandemic instrument. Memories of the COVID-19 pandemic will fade with time, and decisions taken during that period may be slowly wound back. Human memories are short, and we need to hardwire changes into the international legal framework right now while the COVID-19 pandemic is still fresh in our minds. Colleagues, we know what needs to be done. It's now a question of getting on and making it happen, and we are delighted to join with you in this bold, collective endeavour to seriously ratchet up our efforts to prevent future pandemics. Thank you.